I made this video for my grade 3 students, but then again, you are more than welcome to watch this video as well. Right, last time we talked about the early New Kingdom periods. Now today we're going to talk about still in the early New Kingdom periods. I told you in a previous video that there's a lot of interesting story, interesting personality and characters in the New Kingdom period. Now this is the next. Okay, last time we talked about Thutmose the first. He was one of the aggressive kind of pharaoh, very violent. Okay, he expanded the territory of Egypt beyond the borders. Now that never happens before. Egypt become like aggressive for somehow just right after the second intermediate period. Yeah. Now, we're going to talk about the next character, someone by the name of Hatshepsut. Okay, Hatshepsut. Right, it's a kind of tongue twisting there. I need to slow down a little bit. Okay, there you go. I put the names there. So how to read it? Hatshepsut. Okay. So she was the daughter of Thutmose the first. Thutmose the first and his wife. Now remember that he became a pharaoh because he married the right women. The women has a direct descendants of Ahmose Nefertari, which is the wife of God, God's wife. Yeah. The name from that marriage, Thutmose the first and his wife only have one daughter. Okay, one surviving daughter. Her name is Hatshepsut. Now, they don't have any son. Now, question is, who is going to be the next pharaoh? Yes, even though they had a daughter, but still, the question is, who is going to become the pharaoh? Because the pharaoh must be somehow male. Traditionally, should be male. Never before in Egypt's history, Egypt had a female pharaoh. And now, Hatshepsut is going to become the female pharaoh. Now, this is the story. Just before Thutmose died, Thutmose the first, he had another wife. Yes, he married with the Ahmose Nefertari, but then again, he married with another women. Okay, lesser than Ahmose Nefertari, lesser than the queen, and somehow from that marriage, Thutmose the first had another son. Now let's name him Thutmose the second. Thutmose the second. Now I told you in semester 1 that Egypt marriage can be weird. They can marry their own siblings. Yeah. So guess what happened? Hatshepsut married with. She was being arranged married with. Yes, her stepbrother Thutmose the second. That means like Thutmose the second become like the pharaoh after Thutmose the first. It was a 20 years marriage, and then from that marriage they had no children. Oh wait, no, they had one children, only a daughter, but the daughter did not survive. I think she only lived for about 12 years old. But then again, she died. I'm pretty sure it must be like very devastating for them, especially for Hatshepsut. It was a long 20 years of marriage, and it was not being recorded as a happy marriage or not. But one thing for sure, I don't think like Hatshepsut really loved Thutmose the second. Now, Thutmose II died, okay, without any son, without any heir. Oh wait, one more thing I forgot. Another to add. As usual, just before Thutmose II, this time Thutmose II, not Thutmose I. Before Thutmose II died, Thutmose II had another wife and then had another son. Let's just name him Thutmose III. Okay, don't get me stopped. Thutmose I, Thutmose II. Now this is the Thutmose III. Now, that means Thutmose III is the what? Is the son somehow. It's the stepson. There you go. It's the stepson of Hatshepsut. Of Hatshepsut. Now, if you think about it, must be kind of like awkward relationship here. Okay, as Thutmose III is the son of Thutmose II with another wife. That means yes, Hatshepsut is the stepmother of Thutmose III, but at the same time, because Thutmose II is the stepbrother of Hatshepsut, that means like Thutmose III is the nephew. Yeah, it's weird, complicated, but let us just keep that part as kind of must be awkward. But according to the tradition, Thutmose III should become the pharaoh. However, Thutmose III, he was still just a boy when Thutmose II died. So there you go. Hatshepsut as the queen mother, she took the throne as a pharaoh. She took control of Egypt on behalf of her son, of her stepson, because her stepson was not grown up yet, was not old enough to become pharaoh. Now we have the term for that. She became the regent, regent of the Egypt. Yeah, she's in the meanwhile, we call it like the ruler in the meanwhile until like the pharaoh mature enough, old enough to rule. Now this is interesting. Okay, as the first queen, as the first female ruler in Egypt, Hatshepsut, she made several legacies. She left a several kind of like legacy or yeah, for herself, like a reputation. She built and she did something which is somehow is being recorded in the history. One of the first legacy that she built. This is a very important one if you're like really into Egypt. Is we know it as a temple in Deir el-Bahri. Deir el-Bahri is an Arabic name. Yeah, I'll explain to you later. It's one of the most beautiful temple that ancient Egyptian built. It's very unique and it's different than the other temple. Yes, Karnak temple is the biggest in Thebes, but the Deir el-Bahri, it's arguably is the most beautiful. It's just like unusual. Why the names Deir el-Bahri? Yeah, of course. Fast forward the times a little bit, ancient Egypt was kind of like forgotten and being kind of like occupied by the Egyptians, okay? And then these Egyptians, the modern Egyptians, they name it, not modern, but the old time Egyptians, they name it, that place with the Arabic name as a Deir el-Bahri, which is Bahri means like, yeah, if you speak Bahasa Indonesia, you know that word Bahri means sea. Yeah, Deir el-Bahri is towards closer to the sea. Yeah, it's toward closer to the sea because somehow that place, if you travel, you know what, I'll skip the technical details, right? But the ancient Egyptian name for this temple is Jeser Jeseru. Jeser Jeseru, which is, it means the holiest of the holy, or the sacred of the sacred. Now that temple is dedicated, of course, for who? For Hatshepsut. Yeah, it's a kind of like a biography in the temple. It's her biography written in a temple. Now, as the scholars discovered this temple, they found something kind of like odd and unusual. On the wall, in every writings in this temple, the name of Hatshepsut, most of the name of the Hatshepsut is being erased. Most of her name is being erased, and then it was being kind of like awkwardly being replaced with either Thutmose II, which is the husband, or Thutmose III, which is the stepson. No name of Hatshepsut was being left on the wall. What's going on here? Yeah, it seems to be kind of like it's being purposely removed. We'll get that. We'll get to that later. Okay. Now in Deir el-Bahri, as I said earlier, is the temple dedicated to for her, and she wrote some of her achievement. One of the achievement that she's very proud about is her trading expedition. So basically, trading expedition is the idea that sending a group of traders to faraway land to buy or to get some to obtain some exotic kind of like things, exotic kind of like items or goods, and then to kind of like spread the reputations about their country or their nations as an Egyptian. Now this trade expedition, were being sent all the way to the Punt, Punt land. No, not that kind of Punt. Yes, Punt. Yeah, not Punt. Yeah, it must be very fantastic journey. I shouldn't say that. Alright, so Punt is in modern countries of Eritrea. Yeah, if I'm gonna show you guys the map over there, yeah, that's probably, yes, Eritrea. It's just right next to Ethiopia and southern part of Sudan. Now, this journey was being well recorded in this Deir el-Bahri. Now, one of the things that you need to find out, though, Egyptians, they were a lousy sailors. They were not good in kind of like seafaring. They were being, for thousands of years, they were being pampered with the Nile River. Yes, they know how to build a boat, but if you think about it, I mentioned it before, right? Navigating through the Nile River is pretty much very easy. Okay. Like, if you need to go to the south, which is upstream, then you just have to open the sail. The wind will constantly blow from the north to the south, and the wind will carry you up upstream. And if you want to go to the north, which is like downstream, there you go. Simply just like put down the sail and let the river flows kind of carries you to the north, to the delta region. Now, for the seafaring, it's different. There's no current. You just have to rely on what? On wind. Well, the wind sometimes cannot be predictable, cannot be predict, and you have to row. And the Egyptians, they were afraid of, just like any kind of like ancient civilization most of the time. I mean, most of the ancient civilization during those times, they were afraid of the sea. In fact, the Egyptian describe it as the great vast green thing, like the great vast green thing, like the water is kind of a bit greenish. They were afraid that if they travel way too far, they might lost, and they might be like what? They might lost forever in the vast oceans, like in the vast amount of like water. So to overcome that, Egyptian, they navigate through the sea, like I'm gonna show you guys the map over there. It's the Red Sea. Okay, we call it hugging the shoreline. Hugging the shorelines. What does it mean? They travel with their boat, and they make sure that they can still see the land, just in case like if something happens with their boat, they have some chance to swim back to the shore. So that's what we call like hugging the shore. Hugging the shoreline. Yeah. So the journey was very well detailed. Even like I'll show you guys the pictures over here. This is the king and the queen of the Punt land. It was being described like very detailed. And then from that trait, oh, by the way, Punt land later on were being known by the Egyptian as the land of the gods. I don't know why. Maybe because of this one. When the trade expedition returned to Egypt, they brought with them a lot of like exotic goods that never seen it before in Egypt, or goods that very rare in Egypt. Like one of this kind of like rare things that Egypt had was, and then like Egyptian like really prize it, really Egyptian really loves it, is the myrrh. Okay, the myrrh is some kind of a sap of a plant that will produce kind of like a perfume kind of like smell. Usually they will use it in the temple, the myrrh, and also I forgot for the name of that one. What is that thing again? The wood, sandalwood? Not sandalwood. Forgot. I'll get to that later. And also some exotic animals like giraffe, elephant, ivory, yeah, including like the exotic skin. And what Hatshepsut did, she built the first zoo. Yes, the first zoo in Egypt with all of these animals. Interesting, isn't it? Now, other than that, so it's very contrast, isn't it? While Hatshepsut's father, Thutmose the first, was a very aggressive military person, Hatshepsut more on this kind of like building the nation, establishing kind of like trading roads, okay, building the reputations of the countries. Now she did that, and then it was a great achievement. Now one of the things that you need to know about Hatshepsut is she was the first, not the first. She was the Egyptian ruler who has the most obelisk. What is the obelisk? It's a big deal. Obelisk. Okay, obelisk is a monument. Okay, it's a tall monument that looks like a needle. Well, the name itself, obelisk, it means needle. It looks like kind of a tower, tapering stone pillar. It's a stone pillar, tapering like that. That it looks like a needle, and it was set up as a monument. Okay, it was set up as a monument, as a reminder, as some kind of like who can build the obelisk. I mean, you are awesome. Okay, because I'll tell you why. Building obelisk is not easy. Yeah. The only place that you can get the exact stone for this monument is back in Aswan. It's an upstream, and they will have to carve the obelisk from one giant single stone. Okay, cannot use glue, cannot be joined together. So from one single stone, and without chisels. If you think about it, without chisels, how do you cut stones without chisels? So apparently, they have to using this kind of like huge round kind of stone, imagine like a bowling kind of like bowling ball, and they have to pummel it. They have to pummel it, and they have to cut the stone with using it, like pummel it bit by bit. Must be like very unpleasant place to work. The length of the obelisk can be like about 21 meters. Okay, 21 meters. That is about what, six buses, I guess. Yeah. All right. So and then not just about that, and to bring the obelisk from Aswan, which is in the Upper Egypt, they have to put like they have to like what they have to put it, yeah, they have to use Nile River, so they will put some kind of like several boats, and they need to make sure that they have to move, they have to coordinate simultaneously to carry all of this kind of like this long obelisk all the way from Aswan to back to Thebes, the capital of the Upper Egypt. Must, you know, it's very 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 daunting task. It must be like very difficult job and project. So, and for Hatshepsut, she did not build one, she built two. Okay, she built the most obelisks other than compared to the other later pharaohs. Now these two obelisks are still standing in Karnak temple. I think I still have the pictures, but oddly it was being trying to be covered, I don't know why, but yeah. So that's is Hatshepsut. Now let's talk about the weird found. I mean the most the weird kind of like founding that we found, like why her name was being erased. Oh, by the way, yeah. So it seems to be like, you know, Hatshepsut, she preferred to rule Egypt as a queen. Now at first she was as a queen, but eventually she kind of like portrayed her authority, exert her authority over Egyptians, not as a queen, not as a female queen, but as a king. Yes, as a pharaoh. Over the times, then you will start to see like the paintings of like Hatshepsut wearing that Egyptian famous beard, the fake beard, yeah, that fake beard over there. Now it's a fake beard, it's not a real beard. Now the fake beard purpose is a symbol of an authority, the symbol of a kind of like, you know, a male kind of like leader, an elder, because only old people have a beard, yeah. And then she wore that as a symbol that she is the pharaoh. Now what about the Thutmose III, the stepson? Now the stepson is grew up already, old enough to become like pharaoh. Now there was this kind of like, you know, two theories. Like the first theory that somehow Thutmose the third grew up as a bitter child. Like, you know, bitter means kind of like angry, because he wanted to become the pharaoh, but it seems to be like the stepmother kind of like, you know, politically kind of like it's a power play, not letting him to rule. Like, you know, let mommy did it. Okay, let mommy become the pharaoh, and you just sit still. I don't know, play your Fortnite. Okay, more kind of like that. But actually, that is the theory number one. So when later on, when Thutmose the third become pharaoh, he was like what? He was angry, and then he started to erasing all of the names, all of the remnants, all of the legacy of like Hatshepsut. That's theory number one. Another theory is Hatshepsut, when Thutmose the third grew up, they rule all together. They co-rule. They call it. We call it the co-ruling together. So they are pharaoh and the co-pharaoh. Okay, until like the senior pharaoh is old enough. I mean, sorry, until the junior pharaoh is like mature enough, then the senior pharaoh will resign, and after that, the next pharaoh will in charge. More kind of like that one. We'll get there. So, oh, by the way, that theory was, I'm gonna skip that details. Now, about Hatshepsut. Now, this is more kind of like, you know, Hatshepsut more personal life. Hatshepsut never married. After the death of Thutmose II, he never married. He never married any man. Well, of course, because she's a queen, yeah? It's not that simple, a queen to marry with another man, yeah? Like, just think about it. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of England. Yeah, so she never remarried, right? Yeah, it's just because her status as a queen. Now, nevertheless, Hatshepsut, she had this kind of like a special person by the name of Senenmut. Now, the name of Senenmut was written several times in the temple, and this man is very talented. This man by the name of Senenmut, he had 21 titles. He had 21 titles. For example, the overseer of the palace, or the great tutor of Egypt, or the personal tutor of the queen, something like that. Yeah, the great overseers of the projects. Very talented. Senenmut, he's a man, by the way. He has a lot of titles. And then it seems to be the relationship between Senenmut and Hatshepsut is very close. Okay, they are very close. And then even but they never married. Even like when Senenmut died earlier before Hatshepsut. Now I think I told you before, Hatshepsut she's a royal blood, and meanwhile Senenmut, he's just a commoner. Yeah, he was not a royal. He doesn't have a royal blood. He was not even a priest. He just have a commoner. Yeah, apparently it seems to be he's smart and he's wealthy enough. But there's a relationship between them. Now, even when in the death of Senenmut, okay, Hatshepsut gave her personal sarcophagus. Okay, sarcophagus. Remember sarcophagus, the stone casket, for him. Now this is the very beautiful kind of casket. The stone is made. It's a pink stone. It's a pink color stone, which is very rare, and they got it from the from Aswan quarry. Now this is usually reserved only for the royal member family. But then again, she gave it for Senenmut. Seems to be there's something here between Senenmut and Hatshepsut. Yeah, but then again, she did not publicly publish it to everyone. Okay, of course, because she's a queen. And not just that one, the tomb of Senenmut was being built not far from Deir el-Bahri. Yeah, Deir el-Bahri is the temple for Hatshepsut, and the tomb for Senenmut was there. And meanwhile, okay, somehow, it's kind of a bit funny. Later we found out the sarcophagus of Senenmut was being destroyed, was smashed into pieces. Probably it happens later after Hatshepsut and Senenmut died. Okay, now Hatshepsut too. Well, several years later she died. Now she has two tombs. Okay, the first tomb is near Deir el-Bahri, as I said earlier. It was being given for Senenmut, and meanwhile for her, she built another tomb before she died. She built another tomb in the Valley of the King. We talked about Valley of the King on the previous chapters, and then in the Valley of the King. So she would rather have the tomb right next to her father rather than her husband. I told you before, probably because that she never loved her husband. But then again, yeah, she want to be with her father. Now, there's something here, kind of interesting. The Hatshepsut's tomb had the longest tunnel, has the longest entrance tunnel, and this kind of entrance tunnel is very dangerous. And then the tunnel is leading all the way towards the Deir el-Bahri. It's kind of separated though. It's kind of quite far. And meanwhile, the tombs of Senenmut, Hatshepsut's other tomb, which is given for Senenmut, is in Deir el-Bahri, also have a tunnel that leads all the way to Valley of the Snake. So apparently, Hatshepsut kind of purposely built the tunnel for Senenmut and for herself. The tunnel is leading is as if they want to meet each other's in the middle. But then again, it never finished. They never met. If you think about it, probably Hatshepsut did it purposely because somehow it's like that. Between her and Senenmut cannot be together in real life, but maybe in the afterlife they can live forever and ever together as a lover. Now, Thutmose III. Okay, after the death of Hatshepsut, okay, Thutmose III, he was become the pharaoh now. As I said earlier, the first theory that he was angry with Hatshepsut, that's why he erased a lot of name of Hatshepsut. But the other theory is just somehow Thutmose III cannot, because Egyptian is all about following the tradition. Now, never before in Egyptian tradition and history that having a female pharaoh. Okay, so therefore, according to Egyptian, they thought that it must be very embarrassing to have a female pharaoh. That's why they decided to erase the name of Hatshepsut. They tried to remove the trace of Hatshepsut. The Deir el-Bahri, yes, stays there. Of course, you cannot destroy the temple, but he erased all of the names. He erased the name of Hatshepsut and then replace it with either with his name or with his grandpa's name, Thutmose II, and including, as I said earlier, the Senenmut's tomb. The Senenmut's kind of sarcophagus was being destroyed, was being smashed into pieces, with the hope that nobody will remember, and there will be no kind of scandalous story between between Hatshepsut and Senenmut. So, and told you before, early New Kingdom periods is getting more interesting. Okay, now next time we're going to talk about another king, another pharaoh from the New Kingdom period. Okay, a very odd pharaoh, a very kind of weird pharaoh, but then again, he will create something. But before that, we're going, of course, Probably I'm going to have to go back to the Old Testament Bible. I think we're going to talk about Moses. Until that time, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
No, I never forget that day. No, no, never forget that day.